Back to New York City, gearing up for Sunday's big Pride March. The theme this year, Rise Up Pride in Protest, an effort to reclaim the spirit of protest that launched the movement 55 years ago.
The New York Amsterdam News is highlighting one person who embodies that spirit. Bishop Joseph Tilton is on the cover of this week's Pride edition of the New York Amsterdam News, and Pix 11 has partnered up with the publication for a monthly series. And this morning, we're joined by the executive editor, Damaso Reyes, and Bishop Tilton. So good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for being here this morning. So Damaso, I want to ask you, that is a very powerful title, Gay by the Grace of God. Tell me how this story came about.
Again, thank you for having us. So we met Bishop Tilton nearly 20 years ago when he was first starting his ministry. The author, Jimmy Briggs, and I wrote a profile, but we couldn't get it placed anywhere. We couldn't find a publication to house it. But we stayed in touch with the bishop. And during that time, when we interviewed him for the first time, he used this phrase, gay by the grace of God. And for us, it sort of signified this idea that God doesn't make mistakes, that everyone is part of God's plan, and that LGBTQ plus folks have a place in the church, and especially in the Black church. Yeah,
I mean, why couldn't you find a place for it?
It's hard to say. Yeah. It just, I think it might have been a little too controversial for some folks. It was a little baffling us because we thought it was a great story. But finally, nearly 20 years later, we did find a home for it and placed it on the cover.
Yeah, Bishop Tilton, you're an openly gay minister, and some folks in the church don't feel like they think they are accepted in the church, right? So did you face challenges in the church coming up as a minister?
Absolutely. I was born at the end of 1967. Dr. King was killed just a few months later. And my mother perceived that I was of the generation that would demand that the promises of the civil rights movement would be actualized in the life of Black people. And so I grew up the son of an activist who was educated in a very particular way because of the sacrifices made in my home. And I was, so much was invested in me, and I desired to bring back to my community that which I was blessed to receive. The greatest challenge for me of being gay was that my sexuality would upend what I perceived to be this greater purpose. I was in the pulpit preaching at the age of 10. Wow. So I very deeply believed that I was going to grow up to be a change agent for my community. And I thought that my sexuality might upend that. What I, of course, came to learn was that the beauty of my sexuality was actually core to the very mission that God had given me to birth from starting as a child.
You take this mission, this message from Harlem to Africa through your ministry. Tell us a little bit about that.
I have been blessed to spend quite a bit of time in Africa as an ambassador of goodwill to the LGBT community there. And in part, my incentive for going is that the issues that LGBTQI people have in Africa are often, in fact, promoted right here in the United States by the conservative Christian right, which has a global political and economic agenda. And they use the LGBTQ issue to kind of destabilize democracies in Africa, because if you can undermine democracy, it makes Africa's resources pliable. And so given this kind of economic interest that conservative Americans have and how they use and distort religion to promote an economic end, I felt as an African American that I had a duty and a responsibility to partner with my brothers and sisters on the continent to stand up and speak out against these issues.
Well said. And I want to talk about, Damaso, that article, that first article was when?
This was about 18 years ago.
18 years ago. So talk about the moment from then to now. You have the cover, and another article here all these years later. What do you want readers to take away?
I think we want them to understand that these issues and these people are connected, that we, as part of the Black American community, are connected to the Black African community and the Black African experience, that the challenges that LGBT folks face in Africa are similar and aligned and connected to the challenges we face here, and that we all have a place, we all belong to this community, and we all need to begin to accept one another and work together to face the challenges that our community jointly has.
Yeah, it's a very important message of acceptance. We're so glad that you're sharing it with us here today. Appreciate you guys coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
And be sure to check out this week's Amsterdam News Pride Edition, which is available right now.